G'day, so we're back to look at another video around the unit circle, and this time we're going to be looking at some formulas that you've probably seen before but maybe don't understand what it means. And these formulas are these things in here in the red. And what this means is, this is telling us that if we have some known value in terms of sine, cosine or tan, we can work out what its equivalent will be when it's located in a certain section of the unit circle. Now, the last lesson we looked at, last video we looked at unit circle, we were able to determine where in different quadrants what kind of sign would be positive. So a quick review on that, what we did this time was all the signs here, sine, tan and cos, were always positive. Sine was the only positive section in this one. Tangent was only positive here, and cosine was only positive here. When we're looking at the unit circle and we get a question that kind of looks like this, you're not expected to remember all these, but I'll explain to you how it works and maybe you'll be able to remember it just by looking at one of them. We only worry about moving from this horizontal axis. So you'll notice that it's only 180 or 360 that we deal with. We don't deal with anything on the y-axis, so don't deal with 90 or 270, and we don't go above 360. So for instance, if we were somewhere in terms of between 90 and 180, and say we had a marker here, we would find out what that degree is and we'd come back to that. So we start at 180 and come back. In this case here, any value for sine would then be positive. If we did the same thing for cosine and we came back, then because sine's anything that's positive here, that means then cosine will be negative, and any value that you get for tan would be negative here as well. So the way you can think about this here is, you could think about just remembering sine 180 minus theta and think, you know what was only positive when I did that? It was sine. Same thing here. Sine 180 plus theta, the only thing that's positive when I go from here into this section is tangent. And when it's sine or cosine or tangent 360 minus, well, the only thing that's going to give me a positive value would be cosine. So let's look at a couple of examples up here so we can see how this looks in terms of writing the equivalency. So this is basically the equivalent of what? Sine 210 will be equivalent to sine theta or negative sine theta or negative sine theta. So the first thing we do here is we look at ourselves and ask, well, I know that, and I'm going to put these here as well, that sine 210 is approximately, let's just say, for purposes here, about here. Okay? So I know from here all the way around, I've got 210 degrees. So I want to use this formula over here. I know the answer is going to be negative, because nothing can be positive in here except for tangent. I know that I've gone past 180, so I've got to add on to 180. So therefore, I know that I'm going to have negative sine in this one. What I don't know is, well, what is equivalent to 210 degrees, sine 210, in terms of the sine equivalency here? Well, if I've gone 180, I just have to add on that difference. And that difference between 180 here is 30. So therefore, sine 210 degrees is equivalent or equal to the same as negative sine 30. If we did the same thing for tangent, we use blue for this one. Again, if we put a marker in there, let's just say that's 300 here. Okay. We're going to go all the way around, and we'll call that 300. Okay? And we know that if we look at tangent, tangent cannot be positive in that section. So we can write here, it's got to be negative. It's past the 270, so now I'm looking at the 360 part. So I'm going to be minusing something away. So I know that I'm going to get negative tan. But what that information is, well, I don't know what it's going to be. But I can tell here that 360 minus the theta that I have will be equal to what I need. So in this case here, it's going to be tan 360 minus 300 would be equal to negative tan 60. So I've come back negative 60 from that 360 point. If we look at cosine, and we'll do this one here in red, it's going to be a little bit closer. This is not to scale, by the way. So if we go all the way around, we know this here is 315. What we also know is that it sits in the point where cosine is positive. So I know that I can just write positive cosine. By writing positive cosine, it's past the 180, it's not past the 360. So I come back here and I go, well, I need to find out that difference. So 360 minus 315 is 45 degrees. So when we're looking at the unit circle, this is one way we can use and read what we think the answer could be by identifying where this sits. Okay, so that means we've got those two types of ways we can solve that same answer. You're not expected to remember these, but it is a good thing to have to understand how it works with the unit circle. Next lesson we're going to look at is we're going to look at how we use, remember that identity, sine x squared plus cos x, sine squared x plus cos squared x equals 1. We're going to use that to help us work out exact answers on the unit circle. I'll see you there.